So what will I do is that I will run one thread first, and then I'll show you the implementation of multiple threads. Then we'll solve a use case wherein we'll be reading multiple files in parallel. So what we have done, I have created approximately 11 files. So I have split the files using split command, and then I have renamed those files in Python orders file 0 to 10. So there are 11 files, and this each file contains 100 records. What I've done, I have split this particular file, and to split a file, you use this command split followed by L, and then mention the number of lines and then the file name. So I'll split the file and I'll mention number of lines to be 100. So after every 100 lines, this file should be split. And as you can see, this file has, I think, 1000 records. So it has created these many files, and the name is XA, XAB, XAC, etc. We'll have to rename the file. What I had done is that I had split the file and renamed them, and you'll find this file in the dataset, in the sample dataset of Python module. So these are the files that I'll be using in multi-threading. But let's go ahead and start. Now remember the steps. The first step is import the threading library, and this is the module. So we'll be importing that. Then I'll have to define a function which we want to be executed parallelly. And what will I do is that I'll create a very simple function, and the name of the function would be func, and I'll print something. So let me pass a value also, so that we actually get to see the number of threads also. So after this, we'll have to create threads using the threading library. So because I have imported, so the namespace is different, remember? So I'll have to use the threading name also. But if I use, let's say, from threading import thread, I need not to mention threading here. So now what will I do? I'll use thread and then I'll have to pass the arguments. But if I use the syntax from threading, then I do not need that. I'll just type thread and then pass the argument. Anyway, you can use any one of them. So now what I'll have to do is that I'll have to mention the target, and the target would be the name of the function, just the name, not any argument. And after that, we'll have to pass some argument also. So now here, if you see, I am not mentioning any open bracket and close bracket, and in the args, let me pass thread 1 and comma. So this is what we have to mention, and after that we'll start the thread, and then we'll wait for the thread to end. Right now, here what will I do? I want to show you in the command line also that actually there are multiple threads running. So I will wait for maybe 30 seconds, and for that I'll need another module called time, and time.sleep, which will basically, the Python program would wait for the number of seconds that I mentioned. And let's say I want to wait 30 seconds. All right, so what I'm doing here is that I am actually passing or executing this portion of the code using a single thread. Right, so let me go ahead and execute this, and at the same time let me open a terminal also. Let me run some command to show the process ID of this program, and the name of the program is 3IAM multi-threading. So let's see if we have multi-threading running now or not. So nothing is running actually. This is the search command that I have passed. Now let me go ahead and execute. Maybe I'll give 60 seconds or 120 seconds, so just 2 minutes, and let me execute. So I'm in thread 1, and if I type multi-threading, so this is the process ID, and if I use the ps-m command, this is the process and this is the thread. So there is only one thread that is getting executed. This is the main process. The first one is the main process, the first line, and the second line is the thread. Now after 2 minutes, this thread will go away. If you use the ps-ef, I'm not seeing the threads. You see, I'm seeing only one process, and if I execute it again, let me show you. This is the grep search. So let me just omit this, and then Let me show you. And as you can see, I can just see the one process, and this is the process ID, by the way. And there is no thread that I can see using the ps command because it shows the processes. And if I run this ps-m command, this is in Mac, I guess, and Unix rather, it is showing me this particular additional thread. Right now, one thing is that this ps-m might not be uh, correct for other Unix based systems or the Unix that is there in Windows. So I would recommend that you Google how to find out the threads for a particular process for the operating system that you are using. Anyway, so let's see. It is still executing, by the way. Okay, 2 minutes are over. Now there is no process also because the program execution is completed. So I'm not seeing any process. So as you can see, even if I run ps-ef, there's no process because there's no program running. So that's why I'm not seeing any thread. So basically I have just run one thread here, right? So obviously that is something that will not do. You want to execute this particular portion of code parallelly. So you want to run multiple threads. So how do you run multiple threads? Of course, you'll have to import threading. I'll be using the same function, by the way. And let me comment all these. And here, the number, I'll create a variable, the number of threads to run. So let's say I want to run 5 threads. All right. So what I have to do is that I'll have to, as I told you, that if you want to run multiple threads, we'll have to run it in a loop. But for that, I'll have to create a variable which is an empty list. All right, now for I in range 1 to number of threads plus 1. Why plus 1? Because if I mention this range command, it would execute from 1 to 4 if I give 5 here. So that's why I'm mentioning 6, because I want to execute 5 threads. Okay, so after that, of course, I'll have to create the thread, and it would be threading dot thread, and the function is func, target equal to func, and the arguments are, maybe I should pass the thread itself, and it should be I. So I would be passed here, and you are in function with thread number. It will mention the thread number so that we can see all the threads, right? And then what will I do is I will append this in the threads variable, which was an empty list, and then I'll start the thread. So what it will do, it will start 5 threads. Now, as I told you that we'll have to wait for all the threads to be completed. So I'll have to run one more for loop wherein, let's say I use for thread in threads. Again, I'm just naming it as thread, and this is as threads. It can be anything, right? So after that, I'll mention thread dot join. So what it would do, it would wait for all the threads to be completed, and then only the program would be ending. So again, I'm using the same function that we have defined. Now let me copy it here, otherwise it might create confusion. So this is the function, right? And what this function is doing, it is showing print urin function with thread number this, right? So that's what it is showing. And let me just reiterate, I'm passing the number of threads. Of course, this is something that should be dynamic, and maybe you should take it from the user, or the number of threads should be based on certain properties or certain values. So maybe depending on the number of files, you want to create number of threads. So in this case, as I told you, that we have 11 files, so we need to create 11 threads. So that should be dynamically handled, but here I'm just showing you using hard-coded values. And of course, you should not use hard-coded values at all. So that's why I have mentioned the number of threads. Then this is an additional step to run multiple threads. We'll have to create an empty list, and it can be any name, right? It can be A, B, C, but I have given the name as threads because that makes more sense. It will contain all the threads. Okay, so now as I want to run 5 threads, so that's why I have opened the loop that would execute 5 times. And every time it will go ahead and initialize the thread, and it will append it to this threads variable, list variable, and then it will start the thread. So all the 5 threads would be started, and then it will wait for all the 5 threads to be completed. Now here, what will I do? Let me print T. Now what it would do, it would show you the value of the thread, right? So let's say current thread is this one. So it would print T here, and that's all. So I'm printing this current thread, and it would be printed before you go to the function. Let me demarcate that using maybe, this, right? So just a gimmick, and it will show the value of the current thread. It will nothing be but an object. So let's see whether the syntaxes are fine or not. Let me execute, and it is waiting for 2 minutes. Okay, you are in function with thread 1, and this is the current thread, and this is the second thread, this is the third thread, fourth and fifth thread. All are running parallelly. It started at this, and this is the value of the thread, which is I'm currently printing, right? So this is the current thread. Now the problem is that it has not printed just after this, because the way threads work. Anyway, let me go ahead and show you the same in command line. So this is my command line, and let me see multi-threading. So this is the process 5752. Let me run ps-m 5752. Now this is the process, and then I have 5 threads. All are running parallelly, because you can see the output from all of them. Let me just increase the size. So as you can see the output from all of them. Thread number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right, so all of them are executing parallelly, and it will wait for 2 minutes to get executed, and the program is running. You can see here that you can actually press this stop button to stop the program, but it is getting executed. Now let me stop this program. It is still running, by the way, see, because some threads are still there. I'll stop it again, and now it has been completed. So now if I run, there's no process. So this is how we run multiple threads. So far so good. Now let us run some proper program. Okay, so what am I going to do? I am going to read multiple files using multiple threads parallelly. So the first thing is that I'll have to import the threading module. This is the first step. Then we'll have to define the program that we want to run in parallel. So the program would be read files. So let me name it as read files. And I think I'll pass the file name also, maybe. Let's see. Then what will I do? We'll open. So with open file name followed by the mode, which should be read mode, as input file, IP_file, and then I'll read the lines. So I'm reading all the lines, and let me go ahead and print the lines. Print record. Okay, now one more thing. If I just run it with multiple threads, it would complete really fast. So I'll have to use sleep here also. But anyway, let me go ahead and define the threads first. So for I in range 1 to number of files, maybe +1. Okay, now we'll have to pass this number of files. I'm passing it manually, but this is not how it should be done. So how many files do I want to read? So let's say there are 11 files. So I'll read 10 files starting from 1 to 10. I'm not reading 0. Okay, so now I'll have to create the thread, and I'll have to pass the argument. So target should have the value of the function, which is read files, and then the name of the file. All right, so I'll have to pass the name of the file also, and it should be the file name. And we have not defined file name yet, by the way. And then let me start, and I'll have to define the threads variable also as an empty list, and here I'll append the thread, and after this I'll use the join method. Okay, so I'll have to pass the file name here, and the file name should be Python orders file, etc, etc. So let me do this. Let me hard code it, orders underscore file underscore. I'll have to concatenate, right? Because this is something that will get dynamically. So I'll concatenate the I, which should be string, because it's an integer, by the way, and then dot csv. I hope this is correct. underscore one.csv. Yes, and then I'll be passing the file name, and then I'll start the thread, and then let me append the thread. Okay, before that, here I want to pause. So what I will do is that let me initialize a variable count equal to count plus 1. So after every maybe 3 records, I will just go to sleep because I want to see how the behavior is. So import time, and let's sleep for 10 seconds. I don't think we'll need to sleep for so much of time. This should be enough. So this is the code, right? So let me reiterate one more time. So I'm importing threading and time because time would be used for sleep, and then I'm defining the function which will read the files, and I'm passing the file name, and I'm opening the file name and reading the lines and printing the record. And whenever the number of record is equal to 3, then it should go to sleep for 10 seconds. Let me go ahead and print the thread number also. So it would be I, because that is basically one thread, and let me print the underline. I hope that is okay. Now if I execute this, I should see 10 threads, by the way, if the syntax is correct. So let me go ahead and do that. All right. Okay, there's some error. There's no such file, or okay. So I'll have to the program errored out because there are no files. And why is the problem? Okay, the file is in sample files folder. So I'll have to append that with sample underscore files, then forward slash. And now let's execute. It says it is erroneous, this which is the join, but anyway the threads are executing. Let me stop because there's an error and it would go out actually. So it gave an error that thread.join, the none type does not have any join value. So what will I do? I'll have to debug, and let me just type pass here, and I'll not execute this. And here let me print threads. I want to see what is the problem here. So okay, so I'll print threads here also. So it should actually show the all the threads, and let's see. So all the values are none, by the way. Oh, sorry, I should append it before starting the thread. After starting, the value would go away. So let me execute. Now it is fine. All right. So remember that I'll have to append it before starting the thread, because after starting it would go away. Okay, so now let me go ahead and execute the threads in parallel. Okay, so now it would work, and I'll comment this one and I'll uncomment these portions. All right, so now if I execute, so as you can see, all the threads are executing and all the threads are reading one or more records. It is jumbled up because again the behavior is a little different. It's not synchronized, so that's why you see so many jumbled up records. Now the next time it has printed everything at one go. There's some problem again, I guess, in the code. Okay, here I'll have to initialize it because now what is happening here is that the value of count is 3. So next time it would be 4, then 5, then 6. So it will never come here. So that's why I have to initialize it to 3. Now let's run. Okay, so as you can see, it is executing. All the 10 threads are getting executed one after the other, not one after the other, parallelly. So that's why it is all, the output is all jumbled up. Now let's look at command line, and this is the process ID. There should be 10 threads, by the way. So this is how you can actually do parallel processing, and all these files are being read in parallel. Remember that, and you can do all the other operations that you want to do. Let's say you have other parallel operations and that you want to do with these files. Let's say you want to read the file and do some processing. You can do that parallelly also. And what if you have a portion of code which cannot be run parallelly? Now see, only this portion would be executed parallelly because I'm using thread, and this particular function would execute parallelly. You can define other functions, you can define other blocks of code. All of them will not run in parallel because you have to pass the function that you want to execute using threads. And that's what we have done here. So this is what multi-threading is. And I have an hands-on exercise for you. Use the same file that I have used. Read records from Python orders file.csv. We'll have to extract the payment method and price from each record, add all the prices for the same payment method. The output should show sum of all prices per payment method. And what I'm asking you to parallelize the process to execute it 5 times simultaneously and make sure to aggregate the results from all threads at the end. So this is a little different. So if we look at the record, right, if we look at the file, we have order ID, customer ID, seller ID, order date, delivery date, order total price, quantity, payment method. So what I'm saying is that for each payment method, add up the order total price. So let's say there's Visa here, then there's Visa here also. So let's say 807.05 plus 1405.47 plus 859.82, and it should happen for all the different card types or payment methods. But what you have to do is that you have to run this in parallel using 5 threads. But at the end, you have to aggregate the results. Now, what is this? Because, see, you will have to split the file using split-l command. There are 1000 records, so if you split, each file would get 200 records. The same payment method can be there in each of the files. So once the threading is done, once the parallel processing is done, like here, once the join is done, you have to do some more processing here, right? You'll have to write some more code here at the end to aggregate the final results, because we'll get the aggregation from each thread. So that would not be the final result. So you'll have to aggregate all the results. Okay, please go ahead and do so. It would need good logic to handle, because there are 2 things that you have to do. You have to extract the payment method, then you have to sum them out based on the payment method. So it would need a little bit more complicated logic that you have been seeing so far. Anyway, if you have any problem, we can discuss it in our live session. I would request you to do it. The files would be there in the drive that I have shared with you.